You're listening to The Morning Uplift, the podcast that brings you motivation and encouragement throughout your week. I'm your host, Liz Colburn. Grab your coffee, begin getting ready for your day, and join me as we discuss what it means to find the beauty in your journey. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Morning Uplift. I hope you enjoyed your weekend as much as I enjoyed mine. We had some really great family time. Got to see actually both sides of the family, my husband's family and my own. So that always makes for a fun, eventful weekend. We got some great family time. It was very rainy here in the Midwest, but we know that the rain brings sunshine. So I'm just hoping that that sunshine comes quickly. But today I'm so excited to welcome to the show a dear friend of mine and also fellow mama, Jessica. So Jessica, thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, so Jessica has been on this adventure of mommyhood with me. Her son and my son are actually only a few days apart, and I know last week we heard from my friend Dana, who's also a mom, so you get to have a treat again today, hearing from another mom who is just so awesome. Love her, and her son and my son have play dates. We attend the same church, and our children actually got dedicated the same exact day, which is just so awesome to be on this journey together. So I'm going to start her off with a little introduction, and then I'm going to let her get into her content that she has for you today. So Jessica Westrick is 34 years old. She lives in Sussex, Wisconsin. She recently resigned from teaching to stay home with her two kiddos, Emily and Everett. Super, super cute kids that I am so obsessed with. They're so adorable, and I would want to stay home with them too if I were her. Before that, she did teach for 11 years in first grade. She also had some special education experience and taught in kindergarten. And any of you who have kindergarten and first grade kids know that it takes a lot of energy to hang out with those little ones all day. But in her free time, she enjoys being outdoors, hiking and traveling. She loves to paint, which we were just talking about. That is not a strength of mine. So she's going to teach me after this podcast. She's going to teach me how to paint. So excited. But mostly she just loves spending time with her family and her friends. So thanks for being here, Jessica.
Thank you again for having me.
It's going to be great. I got to read your content, and I know that this is going to speak to a lot of our listeners today, whether they are a parent already, if kids are in the future for them, if they're just a woman that might have some of the similar struggles in general. I think that this story is going to speak to so many. So we're going to start like we usually do, and I'm going to ask you, what struggles and obstacles have shaped your life the most?
Well, thank you again for having me. One struggle that I have and I'm still struggling with is my anxiety. So I've always had it kind of growing up, and it really came to head really strongly when I was in college. That's when I had my first panic attack. It was so scary because it was beyond my control, and it overtook my body, and it was horrible. And that was when I thought enough is enough, and I decided to go on some medication to kind of help that, and saw different counselors to work through it. But I just didn't want to be on the medication anymore. I wanted to be able to fight through it, and I know that now I cannot do it on my own. So I truly get my strength from God, and I learned to rely and go to Him, and it really has helped me. I am no longer on medication. I definitely still have anxiety. But yeah, I do definitely still struggle with it, but it is very much under control. And yeah, so
thank you so much for being so brave. I think, from somebody else who struggles or has struggled with anxiety, I know personally how anxiety can take over the body. But for somebody who's listening right now, who might not struggle with anxiety, could you give them a little take of maybe what anxiety, like what forms it played in your life, or what even having a panic attack feels like for somebody who's never had one before?
Well, anytime I had to make a decision is basically when it would become the worst. I would always be playing the devil's advocate and like, well, if I make this decision, then all these things will happen. And if I make this decision, and I could never make a decision, I would get anxiety about it, and I would make it this big thing. And generally, it wasn't that big of a thing. Like when I remember my first panic attack, you're gonna laugh because it's the weirdest thing. I went in to register for college courses, and it was like, you had to get there at a certain time and make sure you got this class. It was really stressful. I remember them saying that because they're like, if you don't get this course in this semester, then you're going to graduate like a half a year later.
Yeah, they should not make it that stressful. It is stressful.
Yeah, and that was it was about 12 years ago or so. No, because then 4 years. It was a long time ago. So I'm sure they do it differently now. But, you had to like wait in line. And so it was like, and I didn't get into one of the courses that she said I had to get in or I would graduate late or something.
Okay.
And so I my car, I'm like, and I just couldn't breathe, and I was crying, and I could not get a hold of myself, and it was so scary, and it was, now looking back at it, it's so dumb, and I ended up getting into the class somehow, and, it works out, but
it's so real when you're experiencing it. Like, it overcomes you. Being there before, too, I get that. But, there's people who are listening that might have never had that before that would be interested in hearing what that does. And for any of you listening right now that have struggled with anxiety, you're probably playing through similar scenarios in your life where you're like, yes, I've had that happen. And I know you have a really big struggle. So that time in college was when it really on the onset. But you had something that happened in your life that even made that trigger point even heavier. And what was that topic that you said was that trial that really started to stir up your anxiety?
I'm talking about
the infertility.
The infertility. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So really the most difficult trial and most emotional that we've ever been through is our infertility struggle. It really has been a long journey, and looking back, it is, I don't know, I get very emotional about it, but so basically it's about 7 years from when we started to try to build our family, and it's a very long story because it's 7 years, so I'm kind of just saying it in general, but we did many tests. Both my husband and I had surgeries done, tons of medication. I changed my diet to see if that would change. I eliminated certain things, tons and tons of shots. I just recently actually saw a picture on Facebook. I don't know what it was, but some babies were born and they had like a ring or a heart of shots. Have you seen that?
Yeah, like I think I know what you're talking about.
All the gosh, I can't think of what. All the shots were like in a heart, and that's like how long it took them. And
wow,
we had that many shots, but it's just that it brought back a lot of memories. But anyways, we both had a lot of procedures. I did, but a lot of doctor's appointments, a lot of tears, and then of course a lot of unanswered questions. Mm-hmm. I can remember doctors saying, it should happen. Like, I don't know what the problem is. So we just didn't know why, because we felt so incredibly strongly to be parents. Like, mm-hmm. Why is God giving us this desire when it's not happening? Like, we could not see that. And so that brought up a lot of anxiety again, and just a lot of hurt, and it was some really hard times. Mm. So through that story and remembering how horrible it was, I can look at it now, and it really does show God's love more than I could have imagined. So, we could have just tried and got pregnant the next month, and yeah, that would have been easy and great, but now that I look back on this, I could not have shown, I don't know. I just could not have imagined it any other way. So we had been struggling with infertility for several years when we decided to become foster parents. And we were blessed with our first child, Emily. And she came to us as a sweet 11-day-old baby girl. I remember getting that call. Brad calls me. They had called him and said, we have a little girl that needs to be placed with you. And I was driving, and he called me, and I had to pull over because I was hysterical.
Oh, I bet. I can't even imagine that news.
Well, I know. And they're like, and she's going to come tomorrow. So
and then the anxiety really peaks in.
Yeah, but I know it was way more excitement at that point.
Sure.
We had kind of gotten a few things ready, like a crib and stuff like that. But I mean, I just remember being hysterically, like, I couldn't even breathe. I was so happy to get that phone call and we were foster parents, so we didn't know, if she was going to be with us forever. But I don't know. I think God just made all the doors open for that. Like, our license went through right away, and it was not even a month, and we got that call about her.
Wow.
And,
a month from when you started being deciding that you would be foster parents. It was only a month.
Yeah, when we got licensed. It was only a month or so later. Yeah, it was very quickly. Wow. And to have, I'll tell you my story, but to have it just all align like that, a lot of people, like, they struggle for years and years, and then they have the, kids in and out of their house. I mean, it just really fell into place. It was definitely, my family always calls her a little angel from heaven, because she just was an answer to prayers.
Amen.
For sure. So, so her first year of life definitely came with a lot of trials, because we were foster parents. So we did a lot of birth parent visits, and we had to kind of fight for her for a while. But then right before her first birthday on May 5th, 2014, it's almost her adoptiversary, we call it. We got
That's so cute. I love that.
Adoptiversary.
Yes.
And we always it's Cinco de Mayo, so we always get Mexican and ice cream and whatever. We just celebrate.
You go real big, as you should. That's a huge celebration.
Yep. So that's when we became a forever family, and it was official that she was a part of our family. So that was one of the happiest days of our lives, for sure. Like, we could not tell you how, it's like, sometimes you have 9 months to prepare for a baby, and sometimes it just happens very differently.
And sometimes it happens overnight, and you just need to be ready. That's awesome.
Yes. So that was one amazing blessing. But we knew that our family was not done growing. We knew that there was more, and we wanted a sibling for Emily. But we didn't know what the next path was. We didn't know, should we continue to foster care? Should we thought about adopting internationally, but we still wanted to have our own. It was just, we did not know, but we knew our family was going to grow. So.
And before you get to the story, Jessica, I just have to pre-warn our listeners that I think that this story that you're about to tell is one of the coolest stories that I have ever heard. And I think when your son, sorry, I'm giving it away. It is a son. When your son gets older, and I think I said that in the intro too, so they already know it's a boy. When your son gets older, he should use this for his 2 truths and a lie. The game, the 2 truths and a lie. But this is such a cool story, so I'm excited for you to share this. Keep going.
Thank you. Yes. So we had talked to some friends, and they had done IVF, and we had talked to our doctor about doing IVF, and we really were hesitant, and we prayed, God, either close the door, or give us a no, or let the door open. And we prayed about it, and we felt uneasy about it, but we didn't know if it was fear, and we should just trusting God. It was very hard to know, but we went forward with IVF, and hearing that had failed was probably one of the darkest moments in my life. It was not pretty what I was saying to God, and I was angry, and it was very sad, and I was hurting very much. So
it's very brave of you to say that part, though, too, when you're having these struggles, because it really shows that, as Christians that are telling your story, it's like you're not less of a Christian if you have moments in your life where you're really angry at God, and you just don't have the answers, and you don't know where to turn, and you don't know how to make it right, and you don't feel good, and you're not less of a Christian if you're having moments in your life that are like that, because I feel like everyone has that.
I know. I mean, he wants us to be real with him, and, have that intimacy. And I think about, like, Brad's on earth, the closest person to me, and that kind of thing. And I'm angry with him. I show all my emotions. You can't just show your happy times. Like, you have to go to him with everything. So
totally.
It wasn't that pretty. So, then we had met some friends at church, the best. They're awesome. Anyways, we had told Emily's story of her being adopted, and they said, well, our kids have a special story too. And they had told us about something called snowflake embryo adoption. And they basically had said that they adopted them as embryos, and she was able to carry them and give birth to them. And I had never heard this before, and I was like, what?
For anybody who just hears this, it sounds like the creepiest thing ever. I will say it sounds so weird, but it gets better. So keep telling your story.
Yes. So I like hunted her down after she told that story. Because actually, ironically, because we got our sons dedicated together, we were dedicating Emily and when she was dedicating her two snowflakes.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
So
Yes.
a lot of good things happen at baby dedication.
Yes. Totally. Bring people together, I guess.
Yes,
Love it.
yeah. So right after she had told that, we were kind of walking out, I'm like, can I just talk to you for a minute? And I ended up talking to her, and we met a few times as husbands and wives, and we just kind of explored that. And it was the same thing as we were exploring it. It was the same thing as foster care. Like the doors were just opening, and we had such peace about it, and it felt so right. Like God was saying, yes, like this is it. And we truly have a heart for adoption. We've always wanted to adopt. We didn't think we'd have to, we thought we'd still have children on our own, but we always had a heart for adoption. So it has that piece to it, but it was an opportunity for me to carry a child. And I felt so strongly. I mean, that was a prayer all the time. Like I said, God, if I can't have a baby, please take this desire away, because it is so painful when you want that so much.
To go through the entire experience of being a mom, like of carrying a baby and all of those things. Yes.
Yes. It was like, why do I want this if I can't have it? 7 years I could not have it. Like I went to the doctor and they fertilized, an embryo, and they put it in, and like they made every ideal possible scientific thing, and I still could not have a baby, So anyway, so I did not know I had that desire. Now I do, to be a mom and to carry a child. So we knew this was the next path for our family. So we this is a really long story with how it worked out, but really we just saw God opening doors throughout it. Like we'd all of a sudden be like, oh no, I am CMV negative, and no, like 90% of people are positive, so you're not going to find a match. And then literally the day we went into matching, so did this family that was negative as well. So it was just thing after thing where it was like the door opening, and like, and my anxiety would come in, and it was a constant reminder to just trust him, because he had it under control. And even though things looked horrible, it would just turn around and it would be fine.
In the power of listening to him in those moments is so surreal, like quieting your heart. Like I love that in the beginning of this conversation you talked about your anxiety, because having to go through that trial alone, and then having to go through the hardest trial of your life of wanting to become a mom, and you're talking about in that moment having to quiet your heart and quiet your thoughts and just listen and be patient. I literally just got chills all over my body thinking about that, because I think anxiety in its own is already a huge obstacle. Then you add this on top of it, and then in all these ways, God's just trying to teach you how to listen and how to overcome that other battle. And like you said, in the moment, you don't always understand why, but he teaches you. And I think you have such a beautiful life mantra that you want to tie into this story about your children and this anxiety.
So we ended up doing the embryo adoption. The transfer is on February 17th of last year. And we got the call from the doctor that we were pregnant, and literally I fell on the ground hearing those words. And so our son Everett was born on November 10th. And what's amazing about him is he has been frozen for 15 years. So
that's crazy.
For me, that's a testament. Like, God already had our son planned out when I was in high school, like way, 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 way beyond, and I was worried about it and he just had it all planned out. So I thought that was just amazing where, I was so worried about it, and of course, and he had it all in the plan. He knew the plan.
So he knows the plan before we know the plan. That was just a perfect example of that.
Yeah. So those are two miracle children that,
they are miracles, and they're so sweet, and I do adore them. So from all of that, thank you so much for sharing that, and that is so brave of you just to open up your heart and to let us hear that. So from all of that, what would you say your life mantra is and why?
Well, my inspiration really comes from Romans 8. I read this verse a lot when I was struggling, and it says, we know in all things God works for the good of those who love him. And I had to remember that there was good coming out of all of this pain, through our storms. Really such beauty came from it. And people will stop me and I tell the story, and they're like touched by it. And so I have to remember that even though it was horrendous in the middle of it, like such beauty has come from it. And I always say, like, it's definitely not the story I would have written for myself, to go through all that pain and all of that, but really I can't imagine it any other way now. So.
And the fact that it just impacts so many people, like you said, that you run into, I know your story has impacted me, and just thinking of me having our 5-month, almost 6-month-old too, and just thinking we didn't have that kind of struggle like you guys did. And, just thinking about how much of a miracle going through that whole process, giving birth to a child really is. And that really puts a lot into perspective for sure. And from all of that, how have you found the beauty in your journey?
Looking back at our struggle, I really have seen how God had been with me through every moment. So, if I wouldn't been through those trials and all that testing, it builds character, and it shows me that I'm not alone and that I really do need to trust in Him. And it has helped my anxiety so much because I had to make a big decision recently of resigning from teaching. Like, I had been doing that for 11 years, and it was everything to me on earth. I just loved it besides being a mom. And it was hard because I didn't want to take that away. I wanted to be a mom and a teacher both full time at the same time. And obviously that's not possible, but making that decision was one of the easiest ones I've ever made. And not because it was necessarily a perfectly easy decision, but I just trusted in Him, and He gave me such peace. And so anyways, it's really helped me to face current, in recent trials, or maybe not trials, but decisions and, big things going on. So, totally. And then, just really all the people that have touched me and that we have grown through this, because really a lot of people struggle with infertility, and a lot of friendships and things have come from it, and there's a lot of beauty in that as well. So
I agree. And to be honest, I think that the other brave part of this is I feel like the topic of infertility isn't really talked about a ton. I feel like it's starting to be talked about a little bit more. And I think people, and what I wanted to get at was, I think that people like you sharing your journey are going to help so many other people who might be in that same boat, might be, worried about coming out about it, or being ashamed, or feeling like something's wrong with them. Like, thank you so much for being that, portal for them to see that other people are struggling with it, and other people are willing to talk about it, and beautiful things do come from it.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's funny because sometimes I call myself an overshare, because they're like, oh, your son is so cute. I'm like, let me tell you a story.
Sit down. Let me tell you all about this son.
And it's probably because I still am amazed myself by the story, and like how all just came together and all those things. And I always give God the glory, but it's just funny because I feel like I'm an overshare sometimes. And sometimes it's really good that I say it, because they're like, they ask me questions, or maybe they're struggling, or, they're on the other side of things. So anyways.
Yeah, such a proud mama, though. I think keep sharing. I think oversharing is way better than not sharing at all. So I'm really proud of you.
Older, and he'll be like, Mom.
Yeah, can you be done with this story now? I've only heard it like 50 times.
Yeah, don't tell him. Yeah.
That's so cute. It's totally going to be Everett for sure.
Yeah,
And to sum this all, bring this beautiful story all together, how do you want your story and mantra to help other people?
I really like to share my story to help people that are currently struggling or have struggled, especially with infertility, but even just learning to trust God and anything with anxiety, because I feel like now I'm kind of on the other side of that really hard time, and I learned so much from it that I don't want to keep that to myself, and I want to help people that I see struggling in that as well. And not that I have it all down, to a science and I'm perfect, but I like to show them that there is hope, because that is what got me through the hardest of time, is that hope. And so I like to be that as much as I can to someone else.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for just sharing your heart. And I hope that by listening today, I hope that other people just really feel your passion about this story, and just can look at this from just such a beautiful way that it all was orchestrated together, and can reach out to, if you don't mind, I'm going to include my email in a little bit. And if people want to reach out for questions, or, are touched by your story in any way, then I can definitely refer those to you.
Absolutely. Of course. I'd be happy to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, so much for joining me for this week's episode of the Morning Uplift. I've been your host, Liz Colburn, joined by my beautiful friend, Jessica, sharing her story of infertility and the story about anxiety and just how this beautiful picture came together. I hope you join me again on Friday at 6 a.m. Central, live on Spreaker.com. Go over to Facebook and like The Morning Uplift. And if you missed a show, catch it on demand at Spreaker.com or subscribe on iTunes. Contact me. Here's my email, lizcolburnbb@gmail.com. If you were inspired by Jessica's story, if you have questions, if you're reaching out, if you're struggling in the same way with infertility, anxiety, wondering what a snowflake baby is, wondering how did she get started on this journey, I know I had a lot of questions, so I'm sure you do too. Reach out. Again, it's lizcolburnbb@gmail.com. I would love to refer those questions to her. Let me know what your takeaways were from today's inspirational speaker. Thank you so much for spending your morning growing with me. God's blessings on an amazing, purpose-filled week. See you next time as we continue finding the beauty in your journey.